Tonight on the Brother to Brother Show, I have a king on. He's going to talk a little bit about who he is. And tonight we're also going to address are arranged marriages in the Black community off limits. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Brother to Brother Show. I'm your host, K Mo, life coach, relationship coach, and podcaster. Tonight, we're having a king on, like I mentioned before, Brian King on, and he is going to talk to us about who he is. He is a husband. He is a father. He is an educator, a really fine gentleman. I've known him almost 10 years now, and as soon as we met, we connected instantly and have been friends and brothers for life. So I wanted to bring him on to have this really good conversation because he is now in it. He is a almost new, he's already a father, but he's about to be another, I have another new one come in. And so let's bring Mr. Brian King in today and let him introduce himself. How you doing, my brother?
I'm good, brother. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, tell the listeners and the viewers who you are, what you do, and just a little bit about yourself.
All right. So as he said, husband, a father, son, from Metro Detroit. I've been in Atlanta for about 14 years now. My field and my passion is education. I've been in education for about the same time, 14 years. Corey and I met when I was working in DC. And I said we clicked from there. Currently, right now, I'm in the process of starting a charter school. We recently got approved and we'll be opening in Atlanta in August 2022. School's gonna be named Liberation Academy. So yeah, just excited to be here and share my experience with you all and chat it up with my brother for a little bit.
Yeah, man. You know, at the Brother to Brother Show, we did a podcast almost a year now ago about just relationships and you being a young father. I know you're a little seasoned now, but you going into being a husband at an early age. Can you tell the listeners like how that was? Because when we talked about it, it was, you know, tell your story about you being young. Because, you know, most guys when they're 20s, it's not even thought of. Like we can't even like focus like that. And so can you tell the listeners about just being a husband?
For me, see, I came from, my parents were in a good marriage. I came from marriage. I saw it and throughout my family. And for me, I had an older cousin who also got married in his 20s. So for me and my family side, marriage was always something to aspire to. And it was something I always looked forward to. Even though I guess as a younger man, my actions may not have shown that, but I did look forward to marriage and I aspired to marriage. Right now I've been married for 9 years. For me, it wasn't, it may sound kind of hallmark, but it wasn't a hard decision to when I knew that I wanted to marry my wife. I knew that I found something that was rare, so I didn't play with it. I didn't want to play games with it. So going into just celebrated 9 years, October 5th, and like Corey said, we got a 3-year-old son and a new baby on the way in December. So yeah, so marriage has always been important to my family, and only did once I looked at some of my friends that I know that marriage was something that people were afraid of.
Right. Yeah, and even it's been, you said 9 years, so much has changed in those 9 years with how people look at marriage, and I'm glad we're having this conversation. Not just a husband, but you're also a father. Talk about fatherhood and, you know, being a father and being able to have that son, and you all are you disclosing the next child or no?
We found out we're gonna have a little girl.
Okay. All right. Congratulations. So
So,
what is that dynamic? How has your life changed? What are you thinking about now having instead of, having a son, that's one thing, but now bringing in a daughter?
for me, with no children, my actions kind of would not kind of, but my actions said a lot about my home life, and it
Mhm.
reflected my home life. Um, I never wanted to disrespect or to make my wife look bad, because even in doing things selfish, that makes me look bad as well. But with having my son initially, it changes you. Like you have a different level of focus, and I didn't, I couldn't play games with my professional life. I approached my professional life with a level of focus that I didn't have before. I had before, but it was even more focused now.
Right.
And even in my marriage, I think that with having a child, that just forces you to try harder. I think that a mistake folks make is that bringing a child into the picture is going to make things easier, make our relationship better. But if your relationship is bad before, like a child isn't going to make it better. And for us, with having a good marriage starting off, it was a challenge, and you have to force yourself to make time for your partner, because you can lose yourself and your children easily. But with having a son, it forced me to have more focus and to be more of and make sure that my actions were dictating things that I wanted them to see. Because I think the whole adage of "do as I say and not as I do" people don't do that. We do what we see,
Right.
and with the daughter even more so. I think that
Actions.
my actions are going to speak loud about the type of man I want my daughter to be with.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that with my wife. I think my wife, she speaks highly of her father, and a lot of the traits that she sees, that she wants in me, or that she saw in me, she saw in her father.
Right. 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 And so with those two things that the husband piece, now the father piece, and going into what about the professional life? How have you, meeting people in our profession, meeting people just in the professional life in general? How do those things dictate in society too? So I'm using professionalism as
Mm-hmm.
society dictate how you are with your family at home. Do those things change a bit?
Um, it does, because the thing is, as I've moved up in my
Mhm.
career, and as I get more responsibility at work, like
Right.
you meet different people, and
Right.
you get different spaces, and more responsibility is more time. And for me, it took more time. Like my son, I took a week off of work. I just got a
Mhm.
promotion to a new school, and I took a week off of work. I didn't take much time, which I regret now. But that level of focus is something that I gained in having children. But in professional life, I approach it differently, because the thing is now I think I try to see exactly what things can I gain from other people. Like I'm a bit more strategic in how I approach different things. And it's not like I'm trying to like play games with folks, but you read people differently, and you kind of plot and strategize a bit more. Like for people coming to meet me, I know they're trying to see if maybe what they can gain from me. For me, I want to see what I can learn from other people.
Right.
But I'm not arbitrary with my conversations anymore, because I know that any relationship can manifest into something differently that can benefit me and my family.
Right. Absolutely. So, do you think the question for tonight, are arranged marriages in Black communities off limits? And so, people ask that question, what are we going to talk about tonight? Like, what does that really mean? And, for us, we've never even looked at arranged marriages.
Right.
That's not something that has been in our community. It's usually in other cultures. And so as I thought about the topic and wanted to like really address it, even how you and I met, and I mentioned that before we even got on, was we instantly were like, yeah, I understand you. We didn't have to, we had a conversation. It was almost like instantly like we knew that we were the same type of character, same type of understanding. I felt like you understood me. I respected you, even just based off of a conversation that we had, and even how you moved was different. And going into that, do you feel like just with our relationship and meeting other people that you decide to have around that? Because as you said, with being a husband, with being a father, with being a professional, you have to move differently. Are you moving in those spaces and making sure that you have certain people around you as well? Because you have to think about more than just yourself now.
In regards to saying have more people around myself, meaning like
The type of people that you hang around, like the type of
okay,
people,
yeah.
do you feel like it's a huge influence on, you know, who you're keeping who's your in your circle?
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. I think that who you surround yourself with dictates and says a lot about you. Like for me, I know that as I've grown and matured, I think some of my relationships with other folks have kind of waned because I don't do some of the things that were the basis of our friendship at that time. Versus as I move now, I know that a lot of the people that I'm with right now, people I've been with for years, that I've hung with for years. But a lot of us who are like-minded is still moving the same way, and we help each other build. Like if I've got one of my best men, one of my best friends is in UX and web design, and does a lot with marketing. So when I have something with my school that I need to bounce off him, he has great ideas that I can pick off of. I got another one of my close friends who's in real estate, very sharp mind, who started his own business. So if I need to pick something off of him, I can. Me and you are educators. We operate in different facets of education, but if I have an idea of something, I can bounce that off you, and I can get a lot off of that, or just how we maneuver as men. Like I think people men that actually think and act and live like me. Like I surround myself with that a lot more now, and I'm more purposeful about that now than I was when I was younger. When your circle is a lot larger when you're young.
Yeah, absolutely. It's less intentional when you're younger, because you're still trying to figure out who you are and who you want to other people to see you as.
Exactly.
But going to that question again, like, do you believe that in our community, arranged marriages that have not actually been around, do you feel like it's off limits for us to bring that in our community?
I think it depends on how we do it. Like I think that how it's done in traditional like Middle Eastern families overseas, I don't know. I don't think that that's something that we'll be able to do. But in regards to families aligning their families with other people that they feel like would be a good fit for their child as well as their family, I think that's appropriate. I think you kind of have to be a bit more, not have to, but I think it's good when you're intentional about who it is that you're dating and who it is that you bring around your circle. I think it's hard I think you trudge into some murky waters when you try to tell people what to do. I think when it's presented as an option, I think it's a lot better than saying you're going to marry him when you grow up. Like I think that's a recipe for disaster. But when you have families, you got two families. Like say if I have a daughter and I have somebody else who has a son, and their families our families are alike, and I know them well. I think that you can try to match them. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I know that for me and my wife, our families came across by chance and introduced us. So I think that's organic. I think
Arranged marriage, I even know it.
Yeah, our families introduced us. Yeah,
and I'm saying that because I know you're saying it's a choice, right? But let's really dive deep into it, right? So let's think about what the definition of arranged marriages is before we like really go into it. So arranged marriages is a type of marital union where the bride and groom are primarily selected by individuals other than the couple themselves, particularly by a family member such as parents. And it can also be done with a matchmaker. And it's because when you're young, to what you said, when you're young, you don't know who you are yet. And I know you and I both can acknowledge this. I know a lot of people over 30 can say this. Whatever your parents told you it was, that's what it came to be. Even when you, as a father, you're like, dang, dad told me that. Now I'm doing it. And I say that because the way society is set up now, it's all over the place, right? I don't, for me, I think society is in a way where, it's kind of chaotic. Everybody has a say so, which is fine to a certain degree, but it also creates no level of right and wrong, no level of understanding for us, for children as they grow. And so speak a little bit about kind of, because I even think that in church, like when I was growing up, we would be around each other at church. We would be a part of in Sunday school.
Right.
We had pageants together. And I think our parents knew, hey, I'm gonna make sure that she's around this type of person, this and even with Jack and Jill, like those type of things have always been around. I don't think that they're around as much anymore. I think they play a part in it, but because we've all been given a platform to speak. It's so saturated. Can you talk to me about do you feel like the way society is, you being in the profession that you're in, do you feel like it's your duty to try to protect that young lady, that young boy that you're raising, and try to show them what a man, what a woman that they should be looking for outside of the household be? And I'm not saying to tell them to go there.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, when you're around them, are you putting them around things that, hey, this is what you should be looking for?
I think you're intentional about what you expose your children to.
Right.
I think you have to allow them to make their decisions as to what's appropriate and not appropriate, and what should and what should be.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I know that we know this, and especially with today's society, I think I said it earlier, that when you try to force somebody
mm-hmm.
moving left to go right, it's going to be difficult. But I think that in the way that in a much freer way, where like you said, the exposure to different people, the exposure to certain things. I think that, and thing is not exposure to one thing. I think children need to see, like, for example, I don't want my children to just spend time with my family that lives in nice places. They need to spend time with the family that stays in other places too. You need to see both sides of the spectrum. You need to see that I want them to spend time with my family in all areas, so that it's not a jaded view. But at the same time, I think it's hard to, if you force them one way, they're gonna go the other. But
okay, let me ask you another question with that. With society and what it is now, and I can actually personally say, if I had children, I would be afraid of the society that it's being brought up in. So because you might be afraid, and you might feel the same way, I'm not sure if you do you feel like there is going to be more intentions with your children, even more when it was with our parents, because there still was a level of right and wrong, structure, and because it's not as guided as it once was, do you feel like you're going to have to do a little bit more of that? I hear you saying that now, right? But we don't know what 10 years, we knew what 10 years looked like 10 years ago. I can imagine what 10 years is going to look like from today. So how do you feel about that? And I'm also for, children learning the hard way, because I think that's what you're kind of saying. Like, hey, I want you to touch the stove, but I told you not to touch the stove. You've learned your lesson. Understand this is what my voice sounds like, so that you won't make those decisions. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I've literally had this conversation with a couple of men around trying to protect their children around others, especially as they go into the society that is now. And you know what the society looks like, and how you're raising your family, which might be much more structured than most.
I think you need to be more intentional, because they're exposed to so much stuff so early. And I think that, especially the earlier they get a cell phone, they got everything,
the whole world in their hands. Yeah,
the whole world at their hands. Stuff that we found out about in high school.
Right, in high school,
middle school. Stuff they figure out in middle school, they get in elementary school.
Right.
So they get stuff so early. So I think for me, I'm gonna have to be very intentional about certain things, to tell them exactly, all right, yeah, you're seeing this, but this is what it really should be, or this is why this is the story behind different things. Like if people are doing a lot of the stuff on social media that get popular, things like that, here's the science behind it. This is why you're seeing this, but a lot of the why, so they're not just seeing the what. But I think you have to be intentional about what they're exposed to, how they're exposed to different things, because you can't guard them from everything. You can't guard them from everything. And I, in a way, like I know for me, I can't speak for other folks, but for me, my parents didn't. I figured out some things on my own. I listened to my parents about some, but I had to bump my head on others. And good lessons were learned through that. But I think that there's some things that you can't avoid. So for me, I will be more intentional about certain things just because there's so much information that children have exposure to right now.
And I think that's my concern and my hesitance with it. I know that you're, for what I'm hearing, you're more like 80% I'm going to push it, 20% I have to let them fall. And I think I'm almost to the point now, like even with the 90% pushing it, because I feel like when we were growing up, even our parents let us fall. It wouldn't with them allowing us to fall, we wouldn't fall off the cliff. I feel like if we allow them to fall now, they may fall off the cliff into something else almost, because there's so much information on a phone. I literally remember like saying, "Oh, I'm gonna run away from home, and have my stick, the stick that you have across your." I'm like, "Where am I going?" I had nowhere to go. But that shit was just in my head. I may have going around the corner. I may have went to the mailbox and came back, but it was a level of fear and understanding that I was like, I can't do this now because I have a phone and I can literally know how to get places through a GPS map. That's what I'm talking about. Right. And so even having a conversation with my brother and some other men about this, like, I think I personally feel like it's intentional for me to have brothers like Brian King, have friends like you, and friends, so that when we do have things and celebrations and stuff like that, we can bring our offsprings to one another and say, "Hey, I know how this dude is. At least I know she's protected with Corey. Right. She's protected with Brian, and that's outside of your cousins too, because the way society works up right now, with again allowing children, no child left behind, no allowing them to kind of do pretty much any and everything they want to and have exposed to a lot and still learning, but still it's more information than sometimes that they can even handle. So that's my fear. And if I can be brutally honest, is to have a daughter, especially, I mean, and have her out here, and your angel when she turns, all the teenage years, and my brother I was having a conversation with him the other day, and we've heard all the stories about, hey, a young man came in his house and this and the third, and it was like innocent, but you just don't know. Because boys, when we were growing up, we were somewhat innocent and kind of naive. These boys have so much information that they're almost kind of like thinking like a 20-something-year-old young man in an adolescent's body, and you don't know. And so your job as a man is to protect. It's always to protect your family. And so going into one of these other questions, so why do we as Americans not adopt arranged marriages, you think?
I think because we're so used to choice. I think we're so used to choice. I think we're used to having our options. And I think that when it's kind of like, anybody's been in the classroom, if you start your classroom rules off like this, it's hard to bring it back to this. And our society has been one of free reign and having choice. And there's beauty in choice. And I don't think that's something that should go away. But I think that's the reason why it's so difficult, because we're so used to having choice and options. And when people make bad choices, people get used to making those bad choices. They don't know the bad choices. So I think that's why, because we're so used to having those options.
So I'm all for bringing it to it. I think we should actually bring it. And one of the things that I've seen over the last couple of months, especially on like YouTube channels and men talking like this, is more men speaking positively about relationships, about our place in the household still, us being able to have the voice of reason and understanding. And that doesn't mean it's all right all the time, but when you get to the place when you become a husband, that is a level of a sign of respect, just like being a wife is a sign of respect and duty to both parties. So with that said, I'm not sure if I believe it should happen. I believe I would not be against and not really saying it, but like having, and like I said it before, having friends in that core group of friends, like you said, as we get older, and like, hey, what is your son doing? Oh, what is your daughter doing? Let's, put them in soccer practice together, and chit chat during that time, and see, and let them go and see, like, hey, they're building bonds and getting to know each other, but it also possibly relationships as well, because I don't believe that a lot of parents, especially our age range, really are looking at, once we get of age or get to the senior citizen age in life, what does that look like for them? It will come a time when they have to get married. It will be a time when they want to have their own family, and I think being a husband and being in a relationship and marriage, you have to go beyond just that. And I know that sounds crazy now because they're not thinking about that, but I really believe that our parents did that. I remember moms that, I'm sure you do too, moms or parents like, oh, he's a good one, or you should go out with my daughter, or whatever. That's the same. How is that different? Right?
Yeah, right.
And how is that different than just actually saying having an arranged marriage, but being strategically about what you're doing and putting your children around?
And I think the term arranged marriage is a scary term. I think that's a scary term. I think that, but like you said, it happens all the time. But I don't think a lot of people are open to the concept. For example, like when your parents say, "Oh, I think you should try to. I met this such and such a daughter. You might want to give them a call." We'd be like, "I'm not calling her." My parents try to hook me up. I ain't calling her. Versus if you have a relationship with your parents and you trust your parents, give her a call and see what happens. Like I think things like that's happening. Like where I think those are.
Hey, bro, it would not. I'm sorry to cut you out. It would not be. I would not be. And this is no shade to your wife. It would not be a surprise to me that your parents, her parents, whoever's parents, they had a family function and just had y'all there, and that's and they're doing the high five like this now, like, yeah, that thing worked.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, I mean, and we know, like, we've gone through things when we had our parents be friends with, and then we're the young ones there in teenage years. You're like, oh, that's so and so's, mom. Oh, okay, yeah. And then you're like, what's the difference between that? Because I feel like that's the same thing when you have events with family members and have events with friends and they have children and they end up playing with each other.
Right.
I think that's where play dates kind of, you may actually start doing play dates for middle and high school kids, because I just think I wouldn't take that off the table for the society, and I'm making light of it, but the society that we live in, because of the dating market that's out here now, what real men are looking for, what real women who are ready are looking for. It's harder to really understand that once you get into the dating market. And I can imagine what this looks like 15, 20, or 30 years from now, with just not marriage not even being as prevalent as it once was when I was growing up. And I feel like you actually caught it on the end, that it was still people really getting married like that. And really counted marriage as marriage, not just the wedding and the, happiness and things like that. So can you talk a little bit about, just your experience and just, what you think about that?
So I think, from my experience, I think that we met when I was in my 20s, and I think that I think people should go through life, and I think letting people go through life to make the mistakes is good, but I think linking up later on in life was actually better for us. I say later in my 20s, but it was. But I think that the choice, people need to have the choice to choose their partners, but at the same time, it needs to appear like a choice, but it's stuff going on in the background. Like I said before, I probably wouldn't have met my wife without the intervention of family, and without family pushing me, I probably wouldn't have called her. So,
Just, we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's the same thing, but at the same time, I
it's
think
just a blessing that it happened that way, man. You both are, spiritual people from what I gather, both people who come from good homes, and I think that's the same thing. I think we all have to do those things to even put you in a place to be there at that age, because they both know. I mean, essentially, it wasn't an arranged marriage, Brian, but your parents raised you a certain way. Both your parents raised you a certain way, and they put you in this place, and it happened.
Right.
That's an arranged marriage, brother.
It's arranged. Yeah, it's arranged.
Yeah. They did what they needed to do.
They did. They
took care of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did. So for me, I don't know. For me, with my kids coming up,
like
I said before, I'll be intentional about the people that they're around. I can't choose who they're around when I'm not around. I can only expose them to the type of things. And for me, I'll be transparent. The conversation I have with my son will be different from the conversation I have with my daughter.
Right.
And that's how it's been. Like, I think when I've taught and I was talking with young men and young ladies, my conversations were different. But I think that I think there's a level of transparency that has to go with that when you're doing that, in regards to type of men that you want to see and the type of men that you want to look for, type of women you want to look for as you're coming up. I think that when you let people just operate and roam free,
right?
Like, I think that you don't want to give too, like, I feel like somebody's saying, you don't want to give way too much access to certain things. You don't want to give way too much exposure, but you need to, here's what it should be. And I'm going to allow you to operate a little bit on your own, but yeah, you need to.
I mean, shout out to Sally Smith. Yeah, making sure that the girls are protected, but also the boys are from the boys from the girls too.
That's true.
And that's so important. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about, is like, you have to be able to protect them and guide them into the right place. Again, I was joking earlier, but I believe that your parents did that, and I think that it's our duty as strong men, as women, to build our children up and know who your children are, and also guide them into those directions.
Correct.
And like you said, you're not forcing them into that, but because they know who who you are, and your parents knew who your wife was, they knew it might have been a good match. And I think that you're probably going to do the same thing too, brother. I mean, let's be honest.
Like, if it's somebody I deem good enough to be with my son, and somebody good enough that'll be a good match for my daughter, like, of course I'll throw the assist out there.
Do you think that because do you feel that you'll know you're hanging around the type of people that you could do the same things that your parents did?
I essentially think I'm doing that now. I think we do that early on with, like, where we choose to live, the schools we want our kids to go to. I think we essentially do that early on. We want them around a certain environment. On top of quality education, we want them to start around a certain environment to learn things with certain people.
Safety as well. Right.
Safety is paramount. So I think we essentially start doing that now. And I don't know, I'll be honest, it's gonna be hard for me to volunteer a boy around my daughter.
Right. Yeah, it is, but it's a part of it, and I know you can't think about it right now.
Exactly.
But my last question to you, man, like, and thank you for having this conversation with me. As a family man, this is the last question. What are 3 things that you fear for your children growing up in this society?
If they're exposed, one is being exposed to something before I can expose them to it. And then, like, a lot of the conversations happened last year with how do you get your children ready for dealing with the police, with whether that's male and female, and but males specifically, because males tend to be targeted in that category. Women do too, because women get that too. So being exposed to something before I can expose them to it. I think 3 things that I fear for them growing up. Another one would be
I'm gonna throw out that probably I heard you say it a couple times. Safety.
Safety.
Mhm.
Safety. I think
Mhm.
that not being able to protect them. I think
Right.
that's another one. I think that's paramount. Like for me, I live a certain place. I put certain things on my house and in my house to protect my family, and then also at the same time teaching them as they grow up how to fend for themselves in different situations. So just protecting them, and then 3 would be like I guess not letting them down. I
Okay.
think letting them down and not being reliable. I think that's something that I appreciated from my parents because they were present as they were very present. They worked, so when they weren't working, they were present. And the thing is, when they were working and can be couldn't present, they were present. So I never felt like I was let down, so that I don't let my children down. So I would say exposure to different things too early, safety, and being reliable. I think those are things that I would say 3 to 4. I've got others, but those are the 3 that could come to mind right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, even me not being a parent, man, I can just remember as I reflect back on having my mother around, understanding, especially finding your why and being aware of things as you grow older, is definitely not like understand that your parents weren't perfect.
Correct.
They're still human. And so you know who you are, you know why you're doing what you're doing, you know where you've come from, you know what type of man and husband that you are. You try to wake up every day and you give your all. Even if you don't feel that way, I believe as a man to man, that you will be whatever it is you sought out to be. Because you're who you are, man. Like, so I say that not because we've had conversations, but because I understand that all parents have flaws and have fallen short. But as long as you stay true to yourself, they'll definitely be able to see those things in you now and be able to take those to their next generation. So, Mr. King, is there anything that you want to say to our listeners and viewers before you leave, man? If there's any websites or just anything that you just want people to know about you that might be coming up soon.
I think I said before, starting in school here in Atlanta, so I'm serving Southeast Atlanta. So just look out for anything that we may have coming up on social media. You can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at Liberation Academy ATL. I say on a relationship tip, just be open to doing things differently in your relationships. I think a lot of times people get caught up in the fog of doing things we used to. I think just be open to doing something different. I know for me, and I know for other folks that I know, when they try something different, whether that be, all right, I'm going to try online dating, or I'm going to try doing something different when I approach people, or restricting these type of people in my life. Be open to different things when you're dating. And if you're newly married, marriage is hard. Like,
yeah,
it's hard. Now it's harder when you choose the wrong person.
Yeah.
Marriage is hard when you choose the wrong person, but it's difficult either way. So choose wisely, pick somebody that's going to work with you throughout all these different things that you're going to go through. You're going to change throughout your entire life, but enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey, and be okay with some, professionally and personally, be okay with some rough spots. If things get too smooth, that's a sign you need to
shake it up a little bit.
Change it up a little bit.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on my show. Being a good brother, always making the time and to talk about real issues and problems and situations about men and Black men especially. And I admire you for being the person that you are, the person that you've always consistently be. And I hope I can be there for you too as you transition into this next part of your life. Again, I'm K Mo. We'll see you next time. Check it out. Thank you, listeners and viewers, for coming onto the show. You can find us at tomorrowsmen.com, on Facebook at Tomorrow's Men, and on Instagram at Tomorrow's Men. Please click and subscribe to the button below. I'm your host, K Mo. Until we meet again, know we love you. Work with us, be with us, and know we're coming from the heart. Peace.